many of us, when we checked in to our room, immediately walked in and looked up at the exhaust and looked at the filter to see if you could see the date on it? I know I'm not the only one. So I walked in, checked the door, looked up, saw the exhaust, and was like, oh, that's great. It's right there. I wonder what rating it is and then what date it was last changed. But mine looked pretty clean. Hopefully yours did too. So everyone, again, I'm Clarence Carson. I'm very excited to do this. This is the first time I'm actually presenting on this topic. But it's something that means a lot to me. It meant a lot to me, and I'm going to go into a little bit of that as well, why it does mean a lot to me. And also where I believe it's taking me and where it also could take you all as well. So the topic I'm talking about is transformation. Some of you all know why they're proposing to talk about transformation right now for me, and the other ones will learn about it now. But actually, that was the topic I intended to talk about either way. Pivoting facilities forward in the age of COVID and beyond. I just want to highlight someone who's here who's meant a lot to me as a group the last year or so. John Dufay. So John Dufay from Albuquerque Public Schools is someone that I've talked to probably once a week over the last year and a half, amongst other school districts as well, from New York, LA, Houston, Broward County, Atlanta, as well, to help get us through this COVID and beyond. That's buying products, that was strategy, that was consoling sometimes in the sad days when people were losing employees. We all have gone through a lot through facilities, especially in this age of crazy COVID where the world seems like it's spinning the wrong way. But as someone who's here, I just wanted to say thank you, of course, to John as a wise fellow, funny fellow as well, keep everyone laughing. But someone who's definitely contributed to all of this, as well as people like John Shea and so many others as well. So let's get started. All right. So again, I'm Clarence Carson. That is me when I first joined Chicago Public Schools. So a little bit more like that Obama, 2008 first kind of coming in. No gray hairs, none of this here, none of this down there. That's not staying late in the office. All that's what I looked like back then. That has changed. I promise you. But something I always, cherish, again, is my varied background. People always say being T-shaped, going deep and then going wide. So essentially, if you look at even like my LinkedIn, job title, it might have been Chief Facilities Officer, but it was Global Facilities, Construction, Real Estate Leader, Public Speaker, and Advisory Services. That's because I always intended to learn a lot from everywhere. One person told me at one point, he said, Clarence, you know a little about a lot. I still don't know if that was a diss or if that was a compliment, but I always think of it as a compliment. So combining all those into what I think makes me me, it makes me want to contribute to our industry of facilities and be a leader in our communities and take that forward. So some of you all may know me from this. On the left side, most recently I was featured on the cover of Building Operations Operating Magazine, our Management Magazine. Building Operating Management Magazine, facilities.net. I talked about the Windy City Revival and talked about how I came to be at CPS and some of the values I brought forward, going to Michigan State, and being from Detroit, and then being in Chicago and joining Chicago Public Schools and how that all came about. On the right, though, this is actually a picture of how that came about. I know many people have, kind of grew up in facilities or something like that. Mine was kind of an odd path. I actually got noticed to join Chicago Public Schools by helping out my daughter's school. I had a different life. I had a different job, and I was a parent who had all this time on his hands, and I was really interested in helping out my daughter's school. So I ended up joining the PTA. Not the bigger groups, but the PTA, the brownies selling, the balloons, the popcorn, all that stuff. It was really because of my daughter. I was at a PTA meeting, and they asked, we have a vacancy in the treasurer position, and we would like someone to run for it. My daughter said, my dad will. He loves asking questions. He loves doing all this stuff. He loves it. And just so happened that at that meeting, I got voted in to be the treasurer of the PTA. That, not being from Chicago, not going to school in Chicago, that was my first real binding to the school system in that way. And then heightened way that I never had before. That taught me about community development, community enrichment, how important it is not just be a student, but providing safe spaces for students, and how that one building affects community in a way that, either we looked up in a textbook, we went to school ourselves and didn't really think about it as much. But now I was able to influence it from the inside, I guess, from being a PTA person. From there, I ended up presenting at a board meeting. No, it looks like I'm arguing at court, but I'm not. There's actually a Chicago Public Schools board meeting. And at that board meeting, I was talking about, in 2018 in March, I was talking about expanding that one school. That was a small school, like 220 students, that only went up to 6th grade, even though it was a special, like a little smart genius school. But it hadn't been renovated in a very long time, and it had been expanded, and I lobbied the board with others there with me as well to consider expanding the school. Because of that, I ended up being on their minds. They were really excited about it. I did an estimate, I did a schedule, I did a design, I did a survey of the community, so community engagement. All these different things. I had political figures that wanted to have input into it. Fast forward, May 2018, the mayor came to our school and cut a ribbon. And not only did he do it for our school, I lobbied for 2 more schools as well. So all 3 schools got an addition, and got an expansion, renovation, and all the bells are ringing and everything was all happy. It was amazing that you can really try to do something and make something happen with just putting yourself out there. And then I got a phone call in June asking me to be the chief facilities officer of Chicago Public Schools, and I was like, of what? They said, of Chicago. I said, to do what? To be over facilities. I said, to do what? Over the schools. How many schools? All the schools. I was like, Chicago Public Schools is the 3rd largest school district in the country. They say, we want you to do what you did for those 3 schools, for all the schools. We know your background is construction, facilities, and urban planning, and all that together. We interviewed the principal, we interviewed the network chiefs, we interviewed all these different people. We want you to do what you did there for all 600 campuses. And that changed my world again. And I couldn't say no. It was a chance to work with a very diverse group of leaders in a way and be able to finally get that chance to do something big. Lead from the front, take a risk, leave the cushiness of what I had playing, golf from the prior life and, being able to play golf, maybe at least 3 times a month to playing golf 1 time a year, pretty much. So that's what it's been like, ever since for the 3 years being at CPS. I do want to unmask one thing. This is really important to me. Thursday was actually my last day at CPS. Crazy how that came about. We were on our 3rd CEO this year, with our first one that left, and then an interim, and then a new one as well. And he came in and wanted to do a restructure. I'm going to talk about how the transformation of our department came about, and how we were leading from the front and doing all this great work. But even then, we're all one decision away, one political change away from, a lot of us live in states like mine are at will employment, and it can just change. But either way, I'm still proud of everything we did for all the 355,000 students, the 50,000 staff, 50,000 staff, 600 campuses, and all the effort we did throughout COVID to keep everyone safe. And it's not changing my belief in what we're doing. What you all get to do as well. You all are the essential workers. You all maintain and manage the other essential workers as well to make sure everyone else can have a safe, warm, and dry environment. So I just wanted to clarify that and how that is also kind of this change that's happening right now too, but you'll see me talk about that more in the presentation. So Chicago Public Schools, 600 campuses, huge, big, not small, right? I love that John Shea from New York and Mark Corvetta are not here because I can say I'm the biggest, well, at least I was, operating the biggest school district in the country because in this room, because they're not here. So, that's just something I like to say. So, to begin the transformation, you must peel back the layers and go to your core. It's huge. How to figure out your organization, how to be a leader, how to move your organization forward. You have to peel back all the layers of the organization, but also yourself. Get to the raw part and not be scared. And hopefully they'll not be scared with you and manage up and you all move forward together. So one thing I did when I came to CPS again in 2018, September, was actually my first days at CPS, I looked at what our department was, and I had to have a department vision. And we didn't have one. We had no vision statement. I'm not sure about your departments, but we didn't have one. So I established that the facilities department aligns to the vision to provide high quality and equitable learning environments. Now, it's for all students, no matter what part of the city you live in. I know we hear about Chicago in the news very often, the south side, the north side, the west side. It has been called one of the most segregated cities in the country because of how it's been developed over the years. But that doesn't matter to us. You know, we're in education, we're making sure every student learns at the same rate and have the same opportunities everywhere. But more importantly, connecting that department's vision to the district's vision itself as well. So the connecting the district's vision as Chicago Public Schools, it was directly connecting our vision to the 5-year vision set by that CEO who was there when I joined, and focusing on a built environment, fiscal responsibility, transparency, and all efforts in our operations as well. So directly making sure that we are embedded in that vision, that we are a piece of the organization was very important. So this is what I came into, Chicago Public Schools. Again, at the time when I joined, we were in an IFM model, Integrated Facilities Management Model. That was 2017 to 2021. We had this many custodians, engineers, and building managers, and this was the size of our organization. You see that we were looking like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, kind of, where really all the weight was at the bottom. We outsourced everything. We outsourced all of our efforts to 2 IFM organizations. So one thing I focused on was refocusing on strong pillars of leadership. Departments that I hope that you all really consider including in your organization if you haven't already. Project controls is probably the most important team of my department. Contracts, compliance, policies, procedures, payments, all of that was in that group. Probably the most important group I helped make sure that we had in our team that were not there before. When I joined, it was really the chief facilities officer and director of operations, and that was it. Everyone else is pretty much like worker bees. But I used the same people that were there as well as brought some more on board and made sure they built out the 6 layers of leadership, each of these leaders. And again, that project controls team was essential to our success. They did the thing that most of us never get a chance to do, have time to think. Someone just to think through our problems and find solutions. Sometimes they're not quick, sometimes they're long, but that's what they did. Next, again, looking at the operational models we had. So circa 2013, we had a decentralized management model at CPS. You see the picture on the top, where it was pretty much the principal talking to all these different people, giving them all different direction. They're all supposed to carry it forward. You know, that model had challenges, multiple points of contact, accountability was unclear, and confusion of ownership. That happens in a lot of different districts. Next, 2017 was a centralized management model, 2002 the IFM model. In that model, the principal told one person, that person did some stuff, and that stuff is supposed to be a benefit, a single point of contact, managerial presence, and so on. But again, it was outsourced, so it doesn't really stay within the district. And the last one was centralized management model, which I helped push a FMO model. Most of you all might think of it as more of a PMO model, but it was an FMO model where we had a service request module, which we never had in our district before, which we now have through TMA. And also all the other work orders all going back through the district with an extended arm through our FMO vendor, which we hired at the time, which was JLL. And strong benefits there too. So, big picture, transformation is hard. I mean, look at me, I'm on the outside now of transformation, but it is still hard nonetheless. You know, I want to make sure to point out successful people follow their instincts beyond their emotions. I knew it was going to be hard, leaving the IFM model that was pitched and the vendors that were associated with it. But, you know, we don't have control in what was there. We don't have control what we can do going forward. And that's what the COO, myself, and others at CPS when I joined committed to. Now, people have changed and people have gone, so the commitment has changed as well. But that's what we committed to, and that's what we did going forward. You cannot change what you can't confront. I'm sorry, what you will not confront. So we focus on the data. We did principal satisfaction surveys, and we got some really hard facts. You know, when it came to the role of the department, you can't really read it really well, but basically, how well were we doing? We were doing poorly. Who to call? They didn't know. Were we responsive? We were not. Did we fix the things they asked us to fix? No. Was the schools in the condition they wanted to have it in during 2018 and 17 and so on? No. So we had to change. Luckily, I joined in 2018, which is part of the change. But before that, that's when this is more so captured. So why change? The Integrated Facilities Management model itself provided less control for CPS administration, less principal discretion, which we all hear about all the time. Low CPS visibility of daily financial expenditures in real time, low visibility through the contract themselves to the sub-vendor contracts. We had no ability to control that. On the right side, the facilities management office model allowed us to have more interaction with the vendors, hold all the contracts, and there being 14 contracts we held directly, increase oversight, centralized standards coming through my project controls team, my operations team, my energy management team, and so on to drive change within the district. And again, on the right side, it's just showing you more data we pulled for principal satisfaction surveys. That was important, stakeholder engagement. So right there, stakeholder engagement. What did we do? And who did we talk to, and how often did we do it? So we polled for the last 2 years. I was meeting with principal advisory councils, procurement advisory councils as well, like this PPAC, network chiefs, local school councils, principal meetings, faith leaders, community action councils called CACs, and union leadership as well. Met with them constantly, asking, what do you want to see in the facilities department? Where have we failed? Where have we fallen short? How can we improve? And we still were doing that. Even after the contract was awarded, after all that was happening, we were still meeting with them constantly to hear, are we doing a good job? Are we responsive? Are your union members pleased? They feel they have been informed. That was something we still carried on to this day. Well, as of recently, and hopefully the department will going forward too. So this is what the model is changing into. So again, from that Charlie Brown Christmas tree to this overgrown Hulk, right? We know the Avengers, think about the Hulk, that's why I think about the green part of it. That green part represents the extended vendor we brought on board at the time we chose JLL to provide us that oomph. You can imagine going from the IFM program you've been in for 3 years to turn to a new model is not easy. And yes, most of us will think we'll just go higher. Well, also during a pandemic, national staffing crisis, and all these other things as well. But soon that contract ends, you got to be able to start. There's no 2-year hiring. There's the negotiations of salaries, residency requirements, all these different things. So we turned to this. And we were able to grow out our model in a great way. What you see on the far left is focusing on human resources, staffing, training, disciplinary actions, all of those things to make sure our staff are performing as they should, custodial engineering and so on. Then you see directly to the right, you see focus on that project controls team, growing it out, KPIs, operations analysts, contract specialists, business operations, work control supervisor, planner, schedulers, CMMS, clerks, and so on, customer service reps, all that, hearing the complaints, turning them around quickly. Not just the work orders, but the complaints, the feedback. In the middle, you also see focus more on engineering, proactive management, maintenance, so that we don't have to call out as often. Again, that's that training part, working with the unions and so on, to help try to build a model where our engineers can be smarter. But it's still difficult because we have to have these specialists there, but we want to pour their information into the people. And then we have to the far right looking at energy and making energy a focus as well with our building engineers, our building managers, and entrenching that as well as environmental services into more of what we did. So again, with this new model, we brought more custodians to the district. We ended up getting 2,500 now. That might have changed during the most recent months when it came to all the staffing challenges that we had, the vaccine mandates and other things. But the fact is, we staffed up on purpose to meet the challenge of COVID and so on. We brought on 100 more building engineers to have more and less potting in our schools and more person interaction in the buildings to make sure things were prepared more quickly. And we still had 100 building managers because they were doing a good job at that rate. Again, these are all the things we focused on, making sure that this model was active and present better than it was before. So this slide here is more so talking about the trends and evolution of FM. Realistically, a lot of us looked at in-house, we moved to out-task, we moved to consolidation, standardization, bundled, IFM, and also TFM. But when I added on to this one was the FMO one. That was not there before. It was a way for us to have some flexibility, but also have some control. Have some opportunity to take on new ideas from an industry leader, but at the same time, retain knowledge that we had as a district. And a part of that next change would have been insourcing more custodial, having that, because we all know custodial really well, and you have to have a lot of insight in that. But initially, it was still outsourcing that part too, but again, managed by CPS and our partners, or the vendor and the district and our partners, but having all the other vendors at the bottom as well, that we review them all equally. So that's my idea. That's why I think industry can go to the FMO model, and I'm proud of the work we did. That is the model currently at CPS. And I'm looking forward to your questions and answers, or questions and I give the answers as a part of that. One last thing. I found that, I want to just read this quote. I found that the things that hurt us the most can become the fuel and the catalyst to propel us toward our destiny. It will either make you bitter or make you better. I choose the better. So hopefully you all do too. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Clarence. So we have time, I guess, for one quick question. We got one right here. You're the lucky question asker.
All right. Clarence, I noticed that you increased a lot of your staffing and stuff. Obviously, you had to get money for that. How did you approach your school board and probably your, I'm guessing maybe some sort of county commission or something, the funding body, to say, okay, we're going to give you the money?
Honestly enough, we weren't that far off. If you look at the extra money we were kind of leaking out in one way or another by extended work orders, all the service requests, the lack of control. We didn't have a CMMS system, they did, so we couldn't even peer into that too. So the money somewhat evened out. And it was also the COVID need. So the fact that we brought on all the different bodies in response to COVID, and a lot of us had emergency orders as well that allowed us to spend more in response to that. So all the bodies we're bringing on in response to COVID, having more accountability when it came to orders for materials that we wanted to have, filters and HEPA filters and everything else as well. That all was a response to COVID as well, and the district understood. And because of that, they allowed us to move forward. And the board approved. Our CEO, of course, had to sign off on it, as well as all the community understood it was meant to improve us and make us better. So the dollars actually leveled out and allowed us to move forward.
All right, thank you so much, Claire. Obviously, if people have additional questions, you'll be hanging out to ask them. So thank you so much for telling me.